Welcome to the Short Movie Channel. Our film today begins in a morgue where we see a person lying down after being autopsied and prepared for burial. There's another person standing there taking a photo, and that person is Tom, the mortician. He places a flower in the deceased's pocket and takes the picture, signaling that everything is ready for the burial. Next, we move to a house in Los Angeles where we see Leah in bed with her boyfriend, Mark. They're having an intimate moment, but it's clear from Leah's expression that she's unhappy and deeply troubled. Mark notices her mood and backs away, asking if something's wrong. Leah insists she's fine and that there's nothing to worry about. She even tells him that she loves him, but has to leave because she's running late. Leah gets up, takes a shower, but her anxiety is still apparent. She's clearly upset about something, though we don't yet know what. Mark follows her, asking again if she's truly happy with him. She gives the same answer, saying she's fine, but her body language says otherwise. She tries to brush him off, then leaves for work, where we find out she's a teacher. Upon arriving at school, Leah sees 3 students bullying a boy named Jack. 2 of them are pushing him around, taunting him. Leah intervenes, pulling Jack aside and calming him down. She tells him not to let anyone bully him and that he should always stand up for himself. She assures him that if he needs help, he can come to her. Seeing how sad he is, she decides to cheer him up by showing him the chick they're raising for their science experiment. Later, Leah heads to her classroom but soon learns that one of her old teachers has passed away. Meanwhile, we see Tom setting up a memorial and preparing for the funeral. Leah walks through the school feeling unsettled, noticing strange things happening around her. The lights go out as she walks down a corridor, and every time someone talks to her, she seems startled. It's clear she's on edge, though she's not sure why. Later, Leah attends the funeral, attributing her anxiety to the stress she's been feeling lately. On her way to the funeral, she runs into the boy she saved from the bullies earlier that day. He asks if he can come with her, but she playfully tells him that funerals are for grown-ups. She gives him a hug and continues on her way. While driving, Leah spots a beauty salon and decides, on a whim, to dye her hair red. Afterward, she heads to the funeral, which, as it turns out, is for the man we saw being autopsied at the start of the film. During the service, someone comments on how tired and drained she looks, but she dismisses it, saying she's fine. Tom watches her with strange glances, but Leah ignores him and goes to take one last look at her former teacher. However, she's overcome with emotion and runs out quickly, dropping things as she goes. Tom stands from a distance, watching her intently. That evening, Leah meets up with Mark for a romantic date. Mark treats her to dinner, but then drops a bombshell, telling her he's gotten a big promotion at work and will have to move to Chicago, meaning they'll need to take a break from their relationship. Leah is devastated and runs off, crying. Mark chases after her, but can't catch up. She drives off at full speed, tears streaming down her face, in the middle of a heavy rainstorm. As she drives, her phone rings. Distracted by the call, she loses control of the car and crashes into an oncoming vehicle, resulting in a massive accident. Suddenly, we're back at Tom's morgue, where we see Leah lying on the autopsy table. Tom removes all her jewelry, cuts off her black dress, and puts her in a red one. At that moment, Leah opens her eyes. Shocked to find herself in the morgue, Leah insists she's not dead, but Tom calmly explains that this is a common reaction from the recently deceased. He informs her that she died in a car accident. Leah remembers the crash but tries to get up, only to find she can't. Tom explains that her body no longer belongs to her, and she can't control it anymore. Leah continues to deny her death, but Tom shows and then he leaves her and walks away. He puts all the things he took from her into a bag to place them in the closet. At that time, Mark is asleep at home, and when he wakes up, he feels regret for what he said to Lena the day before. He tries calling her several times, but of course she doesn't answer. At that moment, the phone is with Elton, who placed it in the same bag that has all of Lena's belongings. Mark sends her a message, letting her know he can't stay away from her. Elton sees the message but doesn't care and just puts the phone back in the bag and puts the bag inside the closet. Mark goes to the school to look for Lena, and when he enters the class, he doesn't find her. He gets worried and starts asking everyone there about her. Afterward, he heads to her house and asks her mother, who tells him she was in an accident and passed away, and that her body is now at the funeral home. Mark breaks down and starts crying, but Lena's mother tells him that there's no use crying anymore, and that unfortunately, everything is over. Lena's mom then goes to the funeral center run by Elton, who at that time is stitching up the wounds on Lena's face. Lena opens her eyes and tells him she doesn't feel anything. He tells her it's normal not to feel anything because she's already dead. At that moment, her mother arrives at the funeral home and asks Elton to see Lena, but he refuses, telling her that Lena's spirit is still present. But her mother insists, and she goes to look at her. When she sees her hair, she tells Elton that her daughter used to have black hair, and she wants it to be black again. She doesn't want it red. Jack sees in the newspapers that a science teacher has died, and he feels very sad. He talks to his mom and tells her that his teacher has passed away. He asks to see her, but Jack's mom is distracted, watching TV, with no reaction at all. We go back to Lena, who gets up from the autopsy table and still doesn't feel anything. She tries hitting her hand to feel pain, but again, she doesn't feel a thing. She stands up and tries to walk, pounding on the door with all her strength, but no one can hear her. Meanwhile, Elton is cleaning and preparing his tools, and he calls the church to inform them that the funeral will be on Friday. Mark arrives at Elton's funeral home and asks to see Lena, but Elton refuses, telling him that only family members are allowed to see her. Lena hears all of this and starts screaming, hoping someone will hear her, but it's no use. After Mark leaves, Elton goes in to get the tools for the autopsy. Lena starts blaming him and tells him she's sure she's not dead. He responds by telling her that all the dead say the same thing and that he's the only one who can see them in their current state. He asks her about her height to prepare the right-sized coffin, but she just curses at him. Elton leaves, while Mark heads to a friend of his at the police station, trying to find out more about the accident, but he doesn't find him there. As he leaves, he notices the impound lot where the wrecked cars are kept. He looks for Lena's car, and when he finds it, he gets inside and sits there, heartbroken, unable to believe what happened. At that moment, his police officer friend shows up and asks him why he's there. Mark grabs a toy from Lena's car and takes it with him. He then asks his friend to try to convince Elton to let him see Lena one last time before the burial, but the officer tells him he can't do that because he has no authority over the mortuary. Meanwhile, Lena, still wandering through the place in fear, stumbles upon another body, which frightens her. She grabs a pair of scissors and sits down. As soon as Elton enters and tries to approach her to dye her hair back to black, she pushes him away and threatens him with the scissors. She heads towards the door but can't open it. He steps closer and tells her to kill him if she can. But she can't. She breaks down, crying, still insisting that she's alive and talking. Elton tells her that the reason she's able to talk to him is because he has a gift. But Tony reassures her that she's already let go of life, and he tells her that her life didn't really have anything good enough to hold on to like this. After he leaves, she throws everything around, and eventually she falls asleep. While asleep, she dreams that the body in the room with her tells her she's not ready yet. Suddenly, she finds herself in a strange, dark underground room filled with weird things, and she's unable to get out. As soon as she wakes up from that dream, Leah starts breaking everything in sight. At the same time, Tony is preparing for another body's funeral. During this, Jack shows up, thinking it's Lena's funeral. Tony talks to Jack and learns that Lena used to be his teacher and was the only one who cared for him at school. He tells Tony that he just wanted to see her one last time before the funeral. After that, Tony goes to check on Lena, and when he walks into her room, he finds her breaking everything. He immediately reacts, but she keeps screaming Mark's name. Meanwhile, Mark is in his apartment bathroom, hearing Lena's voice all around him, but he can't figure out where it's coming from. He tries to sleep, but as soon as he falls asleep, he dreams of her holding her heart, and it's still beating. Mark wakes up in shock, staring at her toy, unsure of what to do. Lena is still in the autopsy room when Tony comes in, telling her that her mom sent a dress for her burial. Lena keeps trying to talk to him and eventually steals the keys from his pocket when he leaves to deliver a body to the hospital. She then takes the keys and tries everything to unlock the doors, which takes a lot of time. After what seems like forever, she finally opens them, but just as she's about to unlock the last door, Tony shows up. She quickly hides, but when Tony finds the door open, he knows something's wrong and starts searching everywhere. Meanwhile, Lena reaches the room with the phone and calls Mark, but all Mark hears is static. Tony catches her and tells her that no one else can hear her and that he's the only one there for her now. He says she needs to prepare for death. Lena asks him for proof that she's really dead, so he takes her to a mirror. As soon as she looks at herself, she feels like she looks just like a corpse. At that moment, Jack is standing outside, seeing Lena's shadow in the window, which is really strange. In front of the mirror, Lena exhales, and smoke comes out of her breath. Tony quickly wipes it away and takes her back to the autopsy room. He begins dyeing her hair back to black and cuts her dress to start the full autopsy. Lena dreams that she's with Mark and that everything that happened was just a dream, but then she wakes up and finds herself in the autopsy room with Tony beside her. Before Tony can start the autopsy, he gets a phone call, saying he needs to pick up a body from the hospital, and he leaves. At this time, Mark goes to the school and collects all of Lena's things. Jack shows up and tells Mark he saw Lena standing there in a red dress at the funeral home. Mark insists that Lena is dead and won't come back to life, then slaps Jack across the face. Meanwhile, Tony is working on the body he brought back from the hospital, and Lena watches him. She pretends to sleep until it's time for her wake. Tony gives her an injection to make it seem like she's dead. Later, a police officer, the brother of the man Tony brought in, arrives to see his brother. The officer is shocked when he sees Lena moving her head. He tries to talk to Tony, but Tony stops him and sends him away. Meanwhile, Jack returns from school, as usual, talking to his mother, but she doesn't respond. He heads to the wake of the deceased man. There, Tony meets with Jack and tells him he can come to the mortuary anytime. Mark, on the other hand, is walking down the street, feeling lost and frustrated, unsure of what to do. He passes a store and sees a red dress in the window, which reminds him that Lena once had a red nightgown. He rushes back to the funeral home and starts fighting with Tony, demanding to open the doors. Lena hears everything but strangely chooses not to respond. Tony gets angry and knocks Mark out. Mark goes to his police friend, insisting that Lena is alive, that she must have been in a coma or something similar, but that she's definitely not dead. Mark tells them that he received a call from the funeral home's number, but no one believes him. Tony enters Lena's room and hands her the dress her mother sent, putting makeup on her, making sure she looks beautiful for the funeral. He makes her walk around the room, but she starts seeing terrifying visions. He then places her inside the coffin. Before she dies, Lena asks to look at herself in the mirror one last time, and Tony agrees. She looks into the mirror and exhales, but sees her breath fogging up the glass, proving she's still alive. She screams at Tony. "Why did you lie to me? But Tony pulls out a syringe and injects her to make it look like she's dead. Tony takes her to the burial site, where her mother watches with great sorrow as they seal the coffin. As they begin to lower her into the grave, Leah regains consciousness and starts screaming and trying to get out, but it's too late. That night, at the wake, Mark still feels uneasy and wants to make sure Leah is really dead. He asks Tony if he can check her grave, and Tony says, "Sure, go ahead." Mark rushes to the grave, convinced he's going to find her and save her, but he ends up in a car accident. When Mark wakes up, he finds himself in the funeral home with Tony, who's about to begin the autopsy on him. Jack stands beside Tony, learning how to perform autopsies, and with that, our movie ends. I hope you enjoyed today's movie recap. Don't forget to give us a like and subscribe if you did.